Sammy Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. First of all, I think we all must recognise that this is a very difficult budget at a difficult time. It is one which I think right across the United Kingdom people are talking about. They were fearful of what was going to come, they're fearful of the consequences and fearful of the fallout from this budget. But as the Chancellor has said, at least now with the announcement of this emergency budget, we have, or we can inject or start to inject some certainty into the economic way forward, and I think from that point of view it's got to be welcomed. I think that the second general point I want to make in relation to the budget announcement today is that despite all of the background that we have had to the current situation, there is still immense economic uncertainty, even amongst those who would be professional economists, as to what is the best way forward. And I want to address that point in a moment or two when I look at what we're looking at from this particular budget. The third thing I want to say, and I suppose coming from Northern Ireland, where the party across the major party in the coalition has recently been rejected by the coalition, so we don't really have too much to fear from them. In Northern Ireland, where the party on this side of the House, of course, don't even stand in Northern Ireland, and where the Liberal Democrats don't have a presence either, although I do recognise they've got a sister party in the alliance. I suppose the kind of political point scoring which there has been over the debate so far doesn't have to be part of my response. Though I do want to say at the very start, although I'm on this side, I think that the hysterical reaction that there was from the Leader of the Opposition did not and does not grace this debate with the seriousness which it deserves. And I think the fact that there was not even a recognition of the role which the previous government played, and we all know that there are many other factors, but the role that the previous government played in the situation which we now find ourselves, or indeed a recognition, as has been pointed out by the figures which were given today, that something similar would have had to be done had there been a different outcome to the election. I think that the reaction we've had from the Leader of the Opposition today has been disappointing. And I think that it would be right for me to make that point, and I don't make it because I don't have to score party political points. I make it just as a general observation on what is, I believe, is a very serious. I will certainly, yes.
I am grateful to the honourable gentleman for giving way. I appreciate that he's rising above the fray on this, but as a former economics lecturer, is he as concerned as I was if he reads 2.108, which actually refers to rebalancing the Northern Ireland economy? Oh. Mr. Speaker, I suspect I know what that means. What does the honourable gentleman fear it means?
Well, I want to come on to the rebalancing of the Northern Ireland economy in the speech which I make. My understanding, and it is, to me, it is actually in keeping with the programme for government which the Northern Ireland Executive have, namely that we cannot forever remain as dependent upon the public sector as we are at present, and there must be a rebalancing so that we've got a structured economy which allows for greater private sector involvement in the economy, and therefore leaves us less open to the dangers of what has had to be done here today, because I do believe that what has been announced today is going to be in the short term very detrimental to the Northern Ireland economy. But let me just come on to what we were looking for in this budget. And I think the first thing that we want to see is a budget which is effective in taking us out of the current situation and the current economic situation in which we find ourselves. Now, the Chancellor's view is that given the size of the debt, given the interest which is accumulating on that debt, given the fact that we have to finance that debt for a large number of years, that we must show the financial markets that we are serious about getting the deficit down and therefore ensuring that we can continue to have a good credit rating, We can continue to borrow, and we can continue to borrow at interest rates which are not punitive, and therefore take even more away from the money which we have for current spending. Now, the assessment, and I must say I don't actually read and I've only had a chance to have a cursory look through the budget statements. The assessment which the Chancellor has made is that if we don't do this quickly, then we will find that our credit ratings go down, that we do lose confidence in the financial markets, with all of the consequences that has. The other side of the coin, of course, is that if that assessment is wrong, and if our credit rating is good for a number of years by showing that we're starting to make efforts, but we don't have to make the kind of draconian efforts which have been announced today. The other side of that coin is that by withdrawing public spending from the economy, there will be a downward multiplier effect. There will be, and that will impact on the level of growth, and therefore we'll get into what's been called the double dip recession, where tax revenues go down, welfare spending goes up, support for industry has to increase, and we get ourselves into an even bigger muddle. Now, yes.
I thank the honourable member for giving way. Will he recall, prior to the general election, that the leader of the Conservative Party, David Cameron, at the time actually targeted Northern Ireland and the North East of England, my region, especially for criticism for the amount of investment in public sector funding, and that to date, and as we've seen in this budget, the Chancellor has not heeded the advice of the North East Chamber of Commerce, the leading voice in business in the North East, saying that the Chancellor and the coalition government need to recheck their commitments on public sector spending, so as not to jeopardise North East economic growth.
The member is leading on to the second point I want to make about fairness in a moment or two, but let me just finish this point. Those are the two sides of the argument in this. And I think that the assessment, it's a subjective assessment, because there is not, I'll give it a moment or two, it's a subjective assessment because we are not presented with any conclusive evidence in the report that we have before us that, first of all, the financial markets are so nervous that we've got to take the kind of deep draconian action at the moment, or on the other hand, that there's an assurance that the reduction in the amount of money which is going into the economy as a result of public spending cuts will not have that impact on economic growth. But I will give way to the member.
Mr Deputy Speaker, I do think we should try and talk about the budget that was actually presented. The total spending in 2009-10, the last year of the last government, was £669 billion. And the forecast total spending of the last year of this government, if it runs for 5 years, is £737 billion. So that is an increase of about £77 billion over the period. What is he talking about?
Well, I mean, first of all, the member has quoted the figure for spending. He hasn't, of course, quoted the figures for taxation or indeed for the deficit, and bringing down the deficit, of course, because that money was borrowed to pump back into the economy. The amount of money which is going into the economy will be substantially less. It's a subjective assessment, because and we don't have any clear picture in the report as to what the likely impact is going to be. And I think that the first thing, and perhaps only time will tell, and I suppose that's that will be the test. At least we now have an independent body reporting on whether or not the measures will be effective. But only time will tell as to whether or not the risk which has been taken today is a risk which will pay off and will balance the economy quickly, and I will give way to the member.
I'm very grateful to the honourable member for giving way. On the point that he is making, is he aware of the paper that was published by Goldman Sachs on the 14th of April, which reviewed every major fiscal correction in the OECD since 1975 and concluded, and I quote, "We find that decisive budgetary adjustments that are focused on reducing government expenditure have typically boosted growth."